Live.
All right. So, I'm coming off of a marathon of outdoor school programs, and I'm working with kids in the public school system. And I really wanted to bring Deshaun Berry on the show.
All right.
And that's us.
Hey, we're live. It's working.
So I really wanted to bring Deshaun Berry on the show because I know that he is running Get Hooked Fishing, and we had some questions that we wanted to ask you about it and find out more about the project that you're working on, and kind of just talk about like some of the different things that we're doing to try and get kids involved in the outdoors. So tell us a little bit about Get Hooked and what you're doing there.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me here, man. So yeah, Get Hooked. It has taken on a lot of different faces now. I mean, originally we just started as an event. It was just an event that we had that we named Get Hooked. And then we saw a need that was in the community to keep that momentum going and to try to see how we can do more events with the community. And so basically it just started really grassroots, really generically with me and my other brother. We were doing some YouTube series and some stuff on YouTube. And like I said, we started working with kids, and I've always had a passion with working with kids and introducing them to the outdoors and knowing what it did for me. And so, that's pretty much how it started, man. And just wanting to give kids the same experience that I had with fishing.
So when did you start fishing? Like,
man,
you say what it did for you. What did it do for you?
So I got to kind of expose my age here, huh? So I'm 44 now. I think I started fishing almost, I can't even remember when I started. That's how long I've been fishing. Probably around 3 or 4.
Yeah.
I grew up in Santa Monica, California, and we'd ride our bikes down to the pier and go fishing off the pier, and any body of water that we can encounter, we were fishing at. And so it was something that my grandparents did.
That's something that like kids really don't have the opportunity to do these days too, is like you don't really see kids riding their bike somewhere to go fishing.
Right.
Like access is a little more difficult now.
Well, man, definitely things have changed. You worry about safety issues and kids even getting there to a spot that they can ride their bike to. And, even growing up in Santa Monica, California, it was a different time. I was able to ride our bikes down to the pier and have that fun. And when we moved up here, it was even better. There was water everywhere. It's not like we had to ride our bikes far. It was just like there was water literally everywhere. And one of my funniest stories is me and my brother used to fish on the golf courses, in the moats in the golf courses for carp off 33rd. And so we'd ride our bikes down there, and we'd get kicked off the golf courses, but we'd be on there fishing, looking for fish, because those are some of the best spots for fishing. They're untouched water, and so we'd get kicked off plenty of golf courses trying to fish, man. So
yeah, so if you're a kid watching this, you should trespass and go fishing, because you're gonna run out of time to where people are gonna allow that, and you get a finger waving before you get.
They'll probably still give you a finger waving
punishment.
At least you're doing something that's fun and not terrorizing the golf course.
It's just darn kids instead of
Get the angry Karen.
Yeah,
exactly.
Right.
Get off the course.
So who introduced you to fishing?
There was several people in my life who introduced me to fishing, but my grandfather was instrumental to us to fishing. He grew up down south, and that was something that was really instrumental. They did, very often in their life. And
where's down south?
He was from. My grandfather was from North Carolina.
Okay.
My mom's side of the family's from Conroe, Texas.
I'm from Alabama, so I'm here down south.
Yeah, so there's water everywhere down there. They all fish for catfish, bluegill, and so he was instrumental in driving that into us. And also, me and my brother went to the Boys and Girls Club down in California, and I'll never forget, they had $2 we can pay for a charter fishing trip out of the Santa Monica Bay. We get our lunch, They clean our fish, but it was only $2. I'll never forget. It
Wow.
was only $2 that we would have to pay, and we would go every single summer. And those are things, that really drove fishing home to us. And then friends that we had, our friend Jimmy and Johnny, they were from Korea, and they fished all their life. They were immigrants to California, and fishing was a huge part of their life. And it wasn't, I had people around me who introduced me, and we just fell in love with it and kept us out of a lot of trouble.
Yeah.
You would most likely catch us fishing than you would catch us doing something else. And
Right.
so when our friends were wanting to go do something else or maybe get into trouble, we were saying, we're going to go ride our bikes down to the pier and we're going to go be fishing. And my brother was good about making sure that we stayed, out of trouble and kept away from that type of stuff.
So you have kids now?
I do. I have adult kids. And so my only child that's at home, my kids are in their 20s.
Yeah.
And so my child that I do have at home she's 10. Her name's Taylor, and she absolutely loves fishing. And probably you'll have a picture up here of her later, but she loves fishing. Anytime I can get her out there and get her away from the stuff that, takes her attention and maybe needs some attention away from, she's definitely out there to do it. She's more likely wanting to be on the boat and having Dad take her to an island so she can go swimming with her friends, though.
Yeah, I was talking to my buddy Brad Melville today, and I was telling him about the show that we were doing and the topic and everything. And he said, well, I got one piece of advice. If you go fishing and you're taking kids, you can either go fishing or you can take kids fishing, but you can't do both.
No.
So has that been your experience?
That is somewhat true. So what I've done now is you have a window of fishing.
Yeah.
So it's usually the period of your fishing ending is when the snacks run out and her entertainment or whatever is entertaining her has ended. And so
Right.
usually, I can get about a good 2-3 hours out of her. But that's working kids into something also that I love to do, right? And so I can't just totally make it about me when we're fishing. I do need to make it about her so she enjoys it and wants to come back also.
Right.
I've talked about this on another podcast with ODFW. I think Caleb, my son, fell in love with fishing so much just because we would go fishing, but we had special things that we would do on the way home. Get ice cream at a special shop or something, so on and so forth. And so my daughter's right there on the right. That's at our fishing camp that we have at Blue Lake Park every July through September. So that's a free camp that we put on.
Bluegill, the gateway drug.
The gateway drug right there. Our motto for our last summer camp was a bluegill can change a life. And so
I agree.
I agree. So I still love bobber fishing also. Yep, there's another pumpkin seed fish from our summer camp. And so
that's an awesome face.
Yeah. And all those kids usually catch fish, and it doesn't have to be the biggest fish either.
So when you do the Get Hooked fishing events, what age groups are you working with?
Typically, we will target any age group. I mean, we don't have an age group.
Yeah.
If you're, there's people who don't know how to fish who are in their 50s. I mean, so we don't want to turn those people away. Of course, we're targeting youth so they can develop some of these skills to have with them lifelong. But then also we're looking at reintroducing people who maybe have not fished also into fishing. And so we don't really have a target age group. If you want to participate in one of our events, we'll make sure that we can fit you in. And we're going to teach you just like we would teach a child how to fish also. And so, those are things that we try not to put those limits on ourselves also, because if we have a person that comes up and wants to fish and doesn't know how to do it, for you probably wouldn't turn away. You'd probably be like, well, let's do it.
That's the thing is with the work that I'm doing with outdoor school. Outdoor school, first of all, is like all 6th graders. And I do summer camps too. And when I do summer camps, it's kind of an age range of about 8 to 13, but it's mostly 10 to 12. And we definitely run into some things where it's kind of like, I don't know, maybe this kid's too old for this, or, a kid's too young and, is going to require a little more attention. So that's pretty cool that like you don't have like a particular age group and you got a wide span of ages that you're working with. And you were telling me before we turned the camera on, you said something about working with families.
Yeah. I think we were talking about how do we further the experience of fishing after an event that we have. And, we typically will encourage families or parents to be at our events also. And we make sure we have more focus on the parent on how to and how an introduction of fishing, because they're the ones who are going to have to take that kid fishing, or if that kid really loves it, the parent may be apprehensive not to take them fishing because they don't know how to tie a knot or where to take them at. And so we try to immerse the family along with the kid, because the family unit is what's going to further that experience after I'm gone or out of the picture. Right. So if I can provide that knowledge to the whole family base, they're more so going to go as a unit and go try that again together. And so that after the event experience is really important to me. Yeah. And that's why sometimes, I'm not always a guy who wants to have 500 people at an event, right? Because you can't give them that intimate experience of going to each family, making sure they know how to tie a knot. They're comfortable with putting on worms. They're comfortable with knowing how to cast, and so I may not be able to give those people that attention if I'm in a huge setting. If I have 25 people there, I can make sure I get to every single person. They're learning those things hands-on from me right there while I'm with them, and they feel confident when they leave.
Yeah, and I mean, a lot of the kids that I'm working with doing outdoor schools and summer camps, this is kind of like their only opportunity to fish, or they've never been introduced to it, and this is something that's completely new, or it's just part of a program that has a bunch of different things, and this is just one facet of it. But a lot of those kids get introduced to it and they're like, oh man, fishing's awesome. This was so much fun. And then I wonder about the parents. They're like, oh, cool, you had a good time at camp or at outdoor school. Oh, you caught a fish. That's great. And then I just kind of wonder sometimes, is it just in there? So how do people get in touch with you if they're wanting to learn how to support their kids in the passion for fishing?
Well, I think you probably run into this also. Once you introduce a kid and you have a kid that's really into it, people are going to reach out to you, or parents are going to reach out to you. You probably have people reach out to you all the time. Making myself accessible to those people and to give them knowledge is one of the things I pride myself in also. Again, we can have an event, but, I want to create lifelong, value with the fishing that we're introducing. And so however we can do to support that, we're going to support that also. So we can have an event, but the support should be there also after the event. So there's never a time to where I'm going to say, you can't reach out to me, or I'm not going to share something or a body of water or what to use. If you need that knowledge, I've even dropped, excuse my language, I've even dropped fishing poles and went to beyond and above, after my events, and made sure kids had the stuff that they need to prolong those things also. Because usually our events, we're just loaning fishing poles out. But if a kid shows a serious desire to fish and they don't have that equipment, I'm probably going to be driving to the parents' house and make sure that the parents have one also along with the kids, and that they know how to use it, and giving them a little bit more time. Yeah. And, those are things that are not always on the books and you're not getting paid for it, but those are the things that are important and drive us to make those connections so we can build those lifelong patterns and habits in their lives. So,
what kind of backgrounds are the families that you're working with come from? It's kind of mixed, or?
Yeah, it's kind of mixed. We see it all. Middle class, low income, every income bracket. I tend to focus, and I'm trying to be where access has been limited. People don't have, fishing can be expensive. Fishing can create barriers for people to get into it. And so where I feel the most comfortable is being amongst those people who have the barriers of getting into fishing, right? And how can we eliminate those barriers so they can have the same experience that I have and you have when we go out there? And so I don't have a specific family that I'm reaching out to. It's more of people who haven't had any fishing experience, or there's some barriers into getting into those into getting into it, whether it be transportation, financial means of getting into it, lack of equipment or licensing that's getting into it, or any of those type of things.
Peanut Gallery, do you get companies that donate rods and reels?
Yeah, so whenever we do things like this, the general public, when they know you're doing good, that's, we all are often so people are bad, but in my line of work, I get to really see the goodness in people. I have had fishing poles donated, equipment donated. People call me, ask me if we need help. There's never a shortage of that stuff, and so people have been great to us and helping us further that work. And so yes, we've had fishing poles donated, and we've had, at one point in my garage, I had over 300 fishing poles. What did I do? I can't fish with 300 fishing poles. I won't have 300 kids at my event. We donated most of that equipment to a group called Living Island Nation, which is they're micro-Polynesian. There's a big group of micro-Polynesian people, population, and they needed fishing poles for a lot of people in their community. So we donated over 300 fishing poles, totes of reels. I'm not going to use all that stuff, and most of that stuff was donated to me. And so if we get stuff that's donated to us, we're either going to refurbish it to where we can use it, or get it to the people who need it. There's no need for me to hang on to stuff and be like the caretaker of 500 fishing poles. And when I leave and die, my son has to, figure out what to do with, a box of reels. And so we get that stuff to the people who need it. And we are constantly supported by corporations, personal people, so we don't take any donations, cash donations. We are an LLC. And so we don't take any donations, financial donations, although we have taken several donations, but they usually go through our 501c fiscal sponsor, and those are very, very minimal. We are primarily supported by Metro and City of Portland and the events and camps that we run.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question, is how you funded.
Yeah, I mean, we can go into it a little further. And so, being that I'm an LLC, and most people ask why I'm an LLC and the type of work that I do, nonprofits are kind of hard to run if you're one person, right? I mean, 90% of your time is pretty much chasing grants. I'm not the best grant writer. I'm a fisherman. I'm not the most organized person in my daily life. I'm not the most book savvy person or law savvy person. And I didn't want to spend a lot of time focusing on that. Only 90% of my time chasing the money and 10% of my time spending it. That wasn't the way that I wanted to operate. But I still wanted to be financially supported so I can have the broadest reach that I could. And so my partner Metro was really unique and creative in my funding. I contract for grant dollars. So it's the same grant dollars that are available to the general public, but I contract for those dollars. I was able to contract and show through the work that we've done how many kids that we would be supporting or whatever, so on and so forth. And then they would support us on a yearly basis for that particular summer camp. And then we're stipend for community work that we do with government agencies and so on and so forth. And then that's just put right back into Get Hooked. I have a day job, and so when I created Get Hooked, even though it's an LLC, I knew it wasn't something I was going to get rich off of. I just wanted to support itself to where we had a huge reach just because we were supported. Because I would drain my bank account to do what I'm doing right now just because I'm passionate for it. But what good is that going to do anybody once I'm broke? You know? And so
yeah. The work that I'm doing with outdoor school, I keep saying outdoor school just so everybody knows that's watching this. Every sixth grader in the state of Oregon has funding from the Oregon State Lottery for outdoor school. That does not mean that every school takes advantage of that. It does not mean that every school takes advantage of that funding to the same level. But the funding is there for every student. and it's from the Oregon State Lottery, so it's a good thing that like these parents don't have to pay for their kids to go and have this experience, and the schools that take advantage of it, they get a week. It's usually 3 to 5 days of outdoor school programs, and it's a similar thing with access. And it's one thing that I really love about it is working with public school kids, and they're all the same age group, and yeah, I mean, they're kind of at an awkward age from like, you know, they're about 12 years old. So they're like, you know, they're old enough to be physically capable and, you know, understand things. And they're on the brink of, you know, entering like a junior high school environment where they're, you know, big fish in a little pond. And, you know, then they're going to be like too old for the little kids, but too young for the big kids. And it's just a really awkward age for them. And it's a really good like age group to introduce with these kind of concepts and ideas and get outdoors. And it's a really awesome program.
One thing you actually brought up that I was, you know, that you made a point was the difference between summer camps and outdoor school.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, we touched about access about that.
Right.
Maybe you can let your viewers know more about that, because that was something that I even learned, even, you know.
Yeah.
Think about the financial aspect of that.
Right.
You know?
So the outdoor school thing, because it's with public schools, it's free, you know. Summer camp is a different beast. Kids that go to summer camp are paying, and they usually through Parks and Rec programs. And the company that I work for is contracted to do the outdoor school, and do the summer camps, but they're contracted by the state or by the city Parks and Rec programs. And the kids who go to summer camp, their parents are paying to send them there. So it's kind of a different thing working with public school kids, especially like they're not in school. It's a school year, and it's still like, you know, and I try to remind them when I'm working with them, like, hey, you know you guys are like on a field trip, you're having a good time, and you're like excited to be out of the classroom, but this is still school. Yeah. Like, you know, and they're all stoked to be there. Like I mean, I've been doing this for like 5 years, and like I've never gotten a single complaint from a parent about outdoor school. Yeah, that's Camp Tadmor right there. And this is, I mean, you can see all the rods rigged up and ready to roll. This is snow in the morning before the outdoor school program started. That's awesome. This facility is like the pinnacle. Yeah, they're singing in the rain right there before lunch. Which, I mean, you know, they're all doing their little dance, but, I mean, they're all engaged together. I mean, all of these kids know each other from classes. And that's another thing that's kind of different about outdoor school is like, they're with their peers that they know from school.
That's your first fish ever?
It's a little bit different when you go to a summer camp, and, really nice, you know, trout. There's some kids that they don't, you know, they're having to meet new kids and like deal with conflict and stuff like that, and it's a little bit easier to manage when they're with kids that they've been with for the whole school year. Do you have like a lot of kids that like make friends at your Get Hooked events and become fishing buddies?
Well, again, you know, we have started to do a lot of work within the schools. We actually just completed a 7-week course with a alternative school called Helen's View Alternative School. And so all those kids, again, knew each other. And so they were able to, you know, be themselves in that group, which was a great experience. But anytime, you know, you have new people coming to our events, kids usually gravitate towards each other. You know, I see that they're a little bit better at gravitating towards each other and opening up a little more towards each other. And especially if you see a kid catch a big fish at our event, usually
Oh, yeah.
all the kids are running towards that kid. And
Oh, yeah.
And so
I know how that goes.
so, that's usually easy for them to overcome. And just touching on the summer camp thing, one of the things we wanted to do when we started our summer camp is have access for everybody, right?
Right.
We didn't want to have a fee that was associated with our summer camp. And traditionally, summer camps have created access problems because most of the summer camps, they're not school funded because it's not during school time, or the funds are not there. Even at the park where we do our summer camp at Blue Lake Park, the majority of the kids that we're serving are coming to the park because Blue Lake offers the free lunch program through their high school, Reynolds High School actually has a free lunch program within the parks. And so majority of those kids are coming because the lunch, they need that subsistence. It's part of their, part of their lunch that they have. And again, they're coming there to
That's a great
fish
picture right
and then
there.
have lunch right afterwards. Yeah, this is our camp, And again, the one right here is we just had an event at Hag Lake where we had 40 Hispanic youth out, and there are 40 Hispanic girls actually, and so it was some of their first time fishing. Some of them were from Colombia, Venezuela, so it was a great experience for them also. This picture right here is one of my favorite pictures. That's my nephew and another participant. But again, those are the type of smiles that we see. And being that we're having an intimate setting, we can go up to every kid and try to make sure that they do catch a fish. And that was the kid after, I made sure that he caught a fish. And
Nice.
again, just like what you do, just being amongst the kids, having the gear that's available to them, showing the parents, as you can see right there, also with the kid. And most of the time I'm showing the parents before I show the kid. And so this is also a Hag Lake event right here. That's my brother, Crappie Killa is what they call him. There's some of the youth at Hag Lake. And that event right there was in partnership with Washington County Parks. And also
Is Keevan watching this?
I don't know if he is right now, but hopefully
Keevan, if you're watching, comment.
And then also the Washington County Sheriff. It's good to make these connections with law enforcement and have them seen in a light also that's not
Big
different.
and scary.
Yeah, not big and scary. I remember when I was a youth, we wanted to be cops, we wanted to be firemen and stuff like that. And so it's good to have them around kids early and just being generically them, right? Just fishing with the kids and helping out, because typically that's why they became officers also, was just to help out. And so to have the officers there, even there in some of my events, is really instrumental in building relationships to where people don't think, they're the big bad person also, because it only takes a couple to ruin the whole bunch. But we see good every time those cops are out and at our events. The Marine cops, any of those guys who usually come out to our events are, we appreciate them being there and building those relationships within the community also.
Yeah. So what? I mean, I saw a lot of bluegill there.
Yeah.
Like, is that mostly what y'all are fishing for? Or
So
are some trout fishing?
It is a summer camp, and so we're all warm water species. And that's one of the things that's tough about a summer camp is that your catch rates are not always that high. And so thank God for those bluegill, man, because they are there every single year, right on time, right in the same spots. And so again, a kid's not worried about how big it is, and most of the time they can see these bluegill taking their baits, and they're just so fixated on like trying to catch them. And but also conservation, we explain conservation and also a taking of a life when you actually hook a fish or you keep a fish and you kill a fish, and how do you respect that all the way through? If we're going to kill this fish, this little bluegill, you would have to eat it. You have to make sure, it's not going to go in your freezer. And we explain that to kids because we're so detached of how our food is brought to us. And people just think it just grows and it's just in a package at the store. And something had to die for you to be able to be nourished. And we have to respect that. And that's something that I really intentionally do every single time in any of our events.
That's huge.
And so, we don't take a life for granted, even
Right.
a trout. And so
Yeah, and the event that we did at Camp Tadmor, this place it's like a college campus with a stock trout pond. It's like the pinnacle of outdoor school venues, but they have a stock trout pond there, and we do our best to catch and release. They're stocker trout, and we explained to them that those fish were like born in a hatchery and raised to be put in that pond for a kid to have a chance to catch a fish. And most of the kids are fishing with night crawlers. Some of them fish with power bait, but sometimes they just get hooked deep and like, hey, this one's probably not gonna make it, but we're gonna like clean it and we're gonna like talk about it. We're gonna cut its stomach open and look at everything it's been eating, and it's a teaching tool.
And sometimes that's usually a kid's first time, sometimes with death.
For sure.
And it's happening with someone else that it's not like a parent or anything like that. So it's a delicate time. And I had a little girl who cried, intensely when she hooked a fish and it got foul hooked. And I knew instinctively what that felt like, because I remember the first time I caught a fish and I tried to put it back into the water because I felt bad, like I did something, but
You do that release and they go belly up.
you go belly up, and you know what? A seagull got it. A seagull got it. I felt even worse. It's like
Seagull's gotta eat too.
Seagull's gotta eat too, and so. But it's important for us to explain that, and that feeling that you feel, you should feel. I mean, there's people who hunt in Alaska and feel connected to what they just took because they took a life to nourish themselves, and we should feel that. It's okay for you to feel that. But we need to respect it now, and we're gonna eat it now. So.
And I was telling you a little bit about the value of a night crawler for that experience, and how like even if a kid doesn't catch a fish, there is this ethical dilemma of like poking a hole through a night crawler with a hook. And I have a story that I want to tell, and I'll try to keep it short. But I was teaching tracking last week, so basically hunting skills, but I kind of relate. When I teach tracking, I do it in a way that's like broad spectrum. Like I talk about different jobs that people would use, that would involve tracking, everything from like, criminal investigations to like somebody who works at Nike and wants to like create a shoe that make you run faster and jump higher. But I was teaching tracking, and I had this like amazing experience where we got on a fresh track. We walked down this field. There's snow just dumping on us, and we're standing over this pile of deer droppings, and we're like peering over it, and we're talking. And I told him, I was like, we're on fresh track. Like we're gonna move a little differently, right? And be quiet and stealthy. So I had this whole group of like 24 kids, and we're all like being quiet, but we're staring at the ground. And one of the high school counselors is like pointing over my head, and he's like, deer. And I was like, yeah, I know, it's deer poop. And he's like, no, deer. I was like, yeah, I know it's from a deer. No, deer. And I look behind me, and there's like 6 deer walking through the field with snow all over their backs. And, the kids are just blown away. Anyway, I'm getting way off track here. I said to keep it short, and I'm failing at that. But it was this amazing tracking field study that we did, and at the end of it, we walked back up the hill, and there was a little campfire that we had going to keep the kids warm. And this one kid picked up a worm that had crawled out of the ground, and he had it in his hand. He's staring at it, and he's just kind of looking at it. And I was like, hey, you should take that worm over to the fishing field study, and maybe they can use it for bait and catch a fish with it. And this is going to be kind of dark, guys, but that kid took the worm and he threw it in the fire. And I had to like tell him, I was like, hey, look, I know I'm a hunter, but like, this is not cool. I'm not impressed. This is not okay. And I kind of called him out, and we're walking back. And then this woman who was kind of in the background of the group came up to me and said that she was his personal aide, and said, this kid obviously has some issues, and I'm his personal aide, keeping track of him here. His family lost everything that they own in a wildfire in Southern California. And I just kind of thought about the, like it wasn't a coincidence that like fire, like, you know, he had this weird fascination with fire and loss and death and everything. And, you know, I had lunch after that and I had a little time to like regroup. And then we had an activity period where I took kids fishing. And that kid was one of the first kids that came up to get bait for his hook. And now I have to explain to him after I scolded him about throwing the worm in the fire and how that's not okay. It's not cool. We don't waste life like that. But we're about now. We're about to put it on a hook. So I had to tell him, I was like, hey, look, I know I was really hard on you back there. But what we're about to do is like, we're about to put this worm on a hook, but I want you to understand the difference about the worm going in the fire being a waste of life and the fact that this worm was like born on a worm farm and it was raised to be put into a container that is sold at the bait shop and purchased by us to give to you as bait to have an opportunity to catch a trout, which is raised at a hatchery.
Which is going to provide you life.
Yeah, and this is this worm's purpose.
Yeah,
like this is its life purpose right now is to get put on this hook. It wasn't born without a reason. It's not going to die without reason. Like this is its destiny to be put on this hook. And then I was like, good luck, and that was it. We got a question up there, a comment.
I think we got you, bro.
that's my buddy from Gills and Thrills. That's my good buddy. That's a killer fisherman right there, and he's a great fishing guide. And he does great work also. He's an EMT, paramedic. So thank you, brother, for all you do also for the community. I appreciate you just as much. And I'll see you up on that river soon. I seen your pictures from today.
So now that we got comments, do you want to do a drawing?
Yeah, go ahead and draw the winner
from last week.
Hold on. So just one other thing. So I still feel bad about putting stuff on the hook, but it's for me it's the sand shrimp. It will always be the sand shrimp. I hate putting them on. I feel like they're always screaming at me like for their last breath once I put them on before I drown them. So.
And the pinchers, man.
Yeah, man.
They're fighting for their life. Worm don't have pinchers.
No.
And that's what I tell kids. This is funny because you mentioned that because that's what I tell kids. Like a lot of them, it's not about the like ethical dilemma of putting a hook through it. They're like, oh, it's squirmy. It's like, you know, it's gross. And I'm like, it's not gonna bite you.
Yeah, it's not at all.
But a sand shrimp will pinch you. That's the first thing I do when I'm baiting sand shrimp is break their claw.
I
make them defenseless.
Yep. Usually you just give them a thump in the head or something. Yeah.
Anyway, let's see. So we're going to do a drawing. This is for last week's prize pack?
Correct.
Okay. So here's the deal, guys. If you comment, we have a prize pack for this week. You want to show them the prize pack?
Yeah.
So since we're doing kids fishing is the topic here, we kind of put something together. I brought this. Thanks, Marlon gave me this at the Sportsman Show. I got a couple copies, so we threw the Addicted Coloring book in there. The Curtis Creek Manifesto. If you guys have not seen this book, it is an Amato book that is like a comic book, and it's very educational. Any age group, adults, young adults, kids, anybody can benefit from this book. This is like one of y'all's best sellers, right?
Correct.
So
yeah,
throwing that in there. If you are a parent and you want to take your kids fishing right now, especially, I know Lucas is watching this because he's commenting. This is his book. If you want to take a kid out to catch a fish right now, April, May, this is the book. Like, you know, I get asked all the time, especially this time of year I'm doing outdoor schools, like, you know, where do I start? This is it. Like this book, all the rigging, like how to target them, you know, this is huge. We've got some Trocar hooks. That'd be good if you're doing the power bait. We got the trout pack from Dave's. We got some line because, man, kids go through line like crazy. You got some more advanced kids. We've got a Mexican hat spinner right here for springer season. We got a fly box and a kokanee dodger. And this stuff, the tuna bloodline. This is from, what's the company name again? Crustacean Sensation.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been trying to come up with all different uses that this could. Everybody's like, oh yeah, put that in your super baits. Like, okay, yeah, but there's a lot of other stuff you can use this for. I'm really curious how this works for kokanee. Like, I'm looking at this trout dodger, and that's the first thing that comes to mind is like throw some corn in with this, and you probably got like a really awesome kokanee bait. And these are amazing polarized glasses here, so you can be out on the water styling. Anyway, this is the prize pack. So if you're looking at all this stuff and you want to win it, you got to comment
Right now.
send some comments, and we will put you in the drawing for next week. But this is last week's comments
Yeah, go
in
ahead.
here in this hat.
Pick a winner, you guys.
So I'm going to just stir it up a little bit,
Yeah, have Deshaun.
and I'm going to have Deshaun draw it.
All right.
Let's see here.
Who do we got?
We have Logan Ellis.
Oh, cool.
Logan Ellis.
He's practically a kid. I met Logan. This is funny. I wrote a story about Logan. Can I talk about Logan for a minute? So Logan, when I was really upset about the Alsea River hatchery broodstock, the wild broodstock program,
Okay.
because all the guides at the time, they were all on the Silettes, and nobody was contributing anything to our wild broodstock program on the Alsea, and it was just really sad. I was like, we're never going to reach the quota. We're never going to have the fish to do this program. And I was like, I want to write a story about this. And I called the hatchery and I said, hey, everybody else in the state's got a public record of who's contributing, and you guys don't. I want to know who is the top contributor of wild broodstock fish at the hatchery. And they said, well, you're never going to believe this, but it's this like 18-year-old like college freshman at OSU that built his own live well. Like, he didn't wait for the state
Man.
to like provide him with one. He built his own, and he wasn't guiding at the time. But he had, at the time I asked them that question, I said, well, how many has he contributed? He said 9. And I said, well, who's number 2 on the list? And I'm not going to name him, but it was a guide. And I said, well, how many they contributed? And they said 2. So I was like, I got to meet this kid. So me and that guy that was number 2 went on a fishing trip together and got some fish to the wild broodstock program. But, man.
Logan, you the
Logan.
man. You the man.
What did Logan win from last week?
Gosh, I would have to go out. I've got all
A whole
the
bunch of stuff.
Yeah, there's line.
He probably needs it, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Everybody casting in trees. Oh, I almost forgot.
Oh, and the rod goes.
The rod. So, for this week's drawing, you get all this stuff on the table that we already went over. And then you're going to get this X11, 7-foot, 1/8 ounce to 1/2 ounce, 2 to 8 pound trout and panfish casting rod.
Wow.
This would make an amazing kokanee jigging rod.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Trolling. Yeah.
Trolling.
I mean, there's got to be like a couple $100 worth of stuff.
I mean,
or more.
this is a really nice rod, but you know what? I think about a kid fishing for panfish with this casting rod, and the only thing I can think of is putting a Zebco on top of it. And how ridiculous that would be to have this really nice rod with like a Zebco on it.
The Zepco stepped it up though. They
You
had like
would
a
be the
$200
coolest kid at the pond if you had this, man.
with a push button.
Right?
Do some
So,
side drifting with a push
You guys
button.
got to leave some comments if you want to be the coolest kid at the pond. All right, where are we at? We got a winner now. Another thing I wanted to ask you about is this story that I went in about the kid with the worm. Let's go back to that. After that whole thing, which was like, that's going to be burned in my mind forever, that whole thing that happened. But the high school counselor, it was the same one who had pointed out the deer when I was like looking at the poop. The same high school counselor. And these high school counselors, by the way, they're there to assist us as like volunteer counselors, like assistants, because they are curious and interested in jobs working with youth or teaching, psychology, all that line of work. So this particular high school counselor came up and asked me at lunch, and he said, "Hey, what happened with that kid that you scolded?" And I was like, "Well, he threw the worm in the fire. His parents lost everything in the fire, and and I told him, I was like, there's people out here that like you don't really know their whole story, and like kids misbehave, but like everybody's got something going on at home, and maybe they don't talk about it, and when they act out or do stuff like that, like everybody's got a story." And when I said that to him, he said, "Yeah, I can sympathize with that kid and his loss. My mom just died 2 weeks ago. And here's this guy that had, is volunteering to work at this camp that just lost his mom like 2 weeks. Like, I don't know. It would have took me a little longer than 2 weeks to be able to go do volunteer work. So I told him, I was like, when I took the job to do outdoor school and summer camps and teach kids and stuff was like right after my dad passed away. And it really made me feel good that I was doing something that I knew that he would be proud of. And I told him, I was like, "Dude, I know your mom's not here, but like if she saw what you were doing out here, she would be proud of you." And he heard what I said, and there wasn't a whole lot said after that. And he kind of walked off and had his moment of reflection on his own. So it's pretty cool how some of these programs have these youth mentors, because the guy that I work for, and he's a huge mentor in my life. He's in the back of my Bead Bible book, is in the acknowledgments, Dan Coyle. So one thing that he told me is like, some of these high school counselors, it's easier for a kid who's 12 years old to look forward into their future to when they're a senior in high school. And it's easier to relate to that as opposed to like trying to relate to me being a 40-year-old, guy who's talking at them.
Yeah.
So you were talking about some of the stuff that you're doing with like peer mentoring. Mm-hmm. Is that something that you? So
we just got done with I just got done with a 7-week program at a alternative school called Helensview. And again, you never know what people's stories are. And
how old are most of those kids?
Those kids were all 6th graders, I think, middle schoolers. So 6th graders. So I don't know, how old is that? 14, 15, I think.
12, 13.
12, 13. I don't even know anymore. But yeah, and it was a great program because again, they're in an alternative school, and an alternative school means, they didn't make it in a public school setting, right? And so they're needing more attention in most cases. And I found myself amongst those kids to be more like, I found myself just like, even when I left after the day, that I was just like, I was so fulfilled, like the work that I did. But I also wanted them to, it was only a 7-week program, and how do we leave them with something that's going to be there for them for lasting? And so what we're trying to do is make peer mentors, right? And so I was able to identify kids who were just like really strong and really took to like the fishing lessons that we were given. And, those are the kids we want to round back to and see how we can, help support them to, expand fishing amongst their school, starting a peer fishing group at their school, fishing in areas around where you are at and where your school's at. Again, like I started off earlier, me and my brother used to ride our bikes and go fishing on the golf courses. Well, riding your bikes and trying to see different areas within your own neighborhood where you guys can fish in at also. And then it keeps kids out of trouble, and it keeps them with a group of kids who are like-minded also. And that's very important. We're very impressionable at those ages, pre-teens to teens up to 25 are very impressionable by our friends, and peer pressure is something that is real. And so if you can have your friends pressuring you to go fishing instead of pressuring you to go steal something from the mall, is how we're trying to infiltrate the schools.
Right.
So, and we me and you speak school so much is because, that's, I think, that's where the kids are at, and we're trying to meet them where they're at also. It's hard to meet them, and sometimes after school or, because their mind's somewhere else. And so if I can meet them at school and have programs that are within the school, every school is facing budget cuts. Every school is facing cuts, tightening the belts, and these programs that used to be there are no longer there, whether it be football, band groups, or anything. Fishing has been by the wayside for so long. And so it's instrumental for groups like ours to be able to come in and fill those voids and be in the schools and trying to get kids, the happiness and fulfillment that nature brings them. So good job to you also.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. And, looking back on my youth, we had football practice after school, and it doesn't really matter what it is, but to have something for kids when they leave the classroom at the end of the day to fill the rest of their day with something productive that they get some exercise instead of trouble. I would go to football practice, and then I would leave football practice and I would take off my shoulder pads and I would fish with my football pants on, knee pads, thigh pads, and everything. And I just I'd rush from the football field to the pond, and I would just fish until dark, and then I'd go home. Man,
I didn't want to get in trouble as a youth. I wanted to go fishing.
Right.
And so that's the same way I think today, I love it so much. I couldn't imagine it being taken away from me. And so that's what we're trying to instill into kids is run to something that's healthy for you and life benefiting, and run away from stuff that's not, and those people who don't want to run with you to those life benefiting places, unfortunately you got to run for those people too. So such is life. And so
well, it's great that you're offering these programs and the access that you're providing.
Likewise, and
in the summer especially, for free. Those are a lot of huge access points. What are you pointing at?
Talk about your book there.
This book?
Yeah, it kind of goes along with all that you're talking about.
Yeah. I just read this book, Outdoor Kids in an Inside World. This is by Stephen Ranella, host of Meat Eater show on Netflix. This is not an Amato book, but it's a really good book. I know, Tony's.
Just keep reading. I want people to read.
What this means, Tony, is I just need to write getting kids outdoor book for you.
An article.
Anyway.
Take an article.
So we'll do an article first. But anyway, this book, I benefited so much from this book. I wanted to bring it and just talk about it. There's so many things that it introduces in here. He mentions hunting as the deep end of the pool. It's kind of, this guy's experience is probably a lot different than most people. He's a hunting celebrity, and he takes his 10-year-old on this caribou hunt in Alaska. And, I started reading that in the first, few pages or whatever. And I was like, what parent takes their 10-year-old to Alaska to hunt caribou? Come on, man. And then he quickly brings it back to I realize this is not everyone else's perspective. And he talks about raising his kids in Brooklyn and Seattle and trying to find ways to introduce kids to the outdoors in those kind of urban environments is a little more challenging. But it's not impossible. There are ways to do it. And there was one story in there that I thought was kind of funny. He was talking about, if anybody here is watching from Seattle area, you probably know about Lake Washington, yellow perch. He took his kids fishing for yellow perch in Lake Washington and brought home some yellow perch. and cut them open, and one of them had roe in it, and he was pointing to the roe and was like, "These are the eggs." And the kid's like, "Well, can we put them back in the water so they can hatch and make more perch?" And he's like, "Well, you need 2 perch to like make that happen." And he cuts open another perch and he's like, "See, these are the milk sacs." And what happens is the female swims around and she lays her eggs on the vegetation, and then the male comes through and then fertilizes the eggs with milk, and then you can have eggs that hatch baby perch. And then he says, "Well, if I was an egg inside mommy's stomach, like how did the sperm get there?" And then that's how this parent ended up like teaching their kid about the birds and the bees. It was cleaning yellow perch.
Yeah.
I mean, like there's so much about the natural world that like we can learn about ourselves by just being a part of it and experiencing it. And this book did a great job explaining all that. So highly recommend that book, along with the ones we got on the table, which if you comment, you will be entered to win. Got anything else, Tony? Did I miss anything?
No, I think that's about it.
I do. Want to
Did you
mention
have something else?
just our upcoming event that we have.
Oh yeah, I almost forgot. That
Yeah.
was like the whole thing. We were promoting this.
So we do have a upcoming event May 6th. It's a fishing tournament at Hag Lake. That's in conjunction with Washington County Parks. We've already probably had about 400 people register. Registration still is open. There's a ton of prizes. Next Door Adventure, Trout Tickler, and forgive me if I'm forgetting anybody else or some of the sponsors and people who have donated stuff to the event. But it's going to be a huge event at Hag Lake.
So what are they fishing for? Everything that's in there?
Everything's on the
What are the categories?
agenda. Biggest fish, the most fish. I have to go look, but we have categories for everybody. So it's open to the general public. Boats. We have a boat, and then we have a shore fishing. So anyone who's on the shore, there'll be 2 different categories.
Okay.
Just to make it fair for everyone there, because the boaters are, of course, are going to have an easier time. And so that's on May 6th. You can register on Washington County's Facebook page, or
Registration's still open.
The registration's still open. They won't cut off the registration on that. I think we have as many people we can.
There's trout stocking going on in Hag Lake too right now. Right?
And we will be stocking the lake for that event specifically. I cannot give dates of stocking.
Yeah, don't do that. Are they putting trophy trout in there?
They will be putting trophy and also regular trout in there for that event.
Nice.
So,
like the big brooders?
Yes. So
sweet.
I'm very, very,
sweet.
very excited for that. And
some kid's going to be stoked on one of those.
Exactly. Everyone from Washington County and all the partners have been working hard to put this on. So.
And the categories are biggest fish and most fish?
Yeah. And I'll have more
Boat,
information.
bank?
Yep. I'll have more information on my Facebook page also. And all that information will be available.
My dad used to do this thing with me every time we went fishing. It was a tournament, but he would always like, "All right, we're in a competition today for the first, the biggest, and the most. And if you caught the only fish that day, you won all those categories." So it made like the one day where like you only caught one fish was like the best day ever.
Yep. You won that bet instantly.
So there's a tip for parents out there. You want to make it interesting, just get one. Give those 3 categories and just try to get the one. All right.
So let me bounce out here.
Come on out here, Tony.
First, I want to thank Randy for doing this, because I'm stuck back there, and hopefully I'm making it entertaining. And then Deshaun, thank you for coming out. This is awesome.
No problem. Appreciate you guys for having me.
Thanks for coming out, man. Looking forward to this one.
Appreciate the support always.
If these guys keep teaching all these kids to fish, who's going to teach them how to play video games or to look at their cell phones? They're going to forget all about that stuff, right? So
they can look at their cell phone and watch the salmon trout steelheader YouTube, and then they can learn how to catch more fish. So.
Exactly.
Yeah. We're going to get 1 million views from 12-year-olds. I hope. But thanks for coming on. And I'm trying to think if I'm forgetting anything. I don't think so. But it's a good time, and we got to get to know Deshaun here. Great guy, doing a good thing for kids. And I I highly recommend looking them up, getting your kid involved with outdoors activities. You know, I was thinking about this while I was sitting back there. I remember when I was younger, you know, we would go out to the river, maybe just bank fishing, and you would go to each spot, and it was like a whole new adventure. You had a whole different, the water was going a different way, the boulders were in different spots, maybe you saw some wildlife. I mean, it's sad to think that real life experience has possibly been switched with digital images, which it's not the same. There's no smell, there's no taste, there's no feel. And are you going to remember something you saw on your cell phone 20 years from now? Probably not. So it's really important to get these youth involved with outdoor activities.
What's the quote? No man steps in the same river twice because the river's not the same river and he's not the same man.
Sounds good to me.
Sounds good to me.
Or kid, barefoot,
Person, people.
All right, so I'm gonna hit end, and like we were saying, if you guys comment, you can win all that stuff along with the Lamy Glass rod back here in the corner. And we'll see you guys next time.
All right, thanks for watching, guys.